Blessed One Shakyamuni Buddha, precious treasury of compassion, bestower of supreme inner peace, you who love all beings without exception, are the source of happiness and goodness, and you guide us to the liberating path. Your body is a wish-fulfilling jewel. Your speech is supreme purifying nectar, and your mind is refuge for all living beings. With folded hands I turn to you, supreme unchanging friend. I request from the depths of my heart, please give me the light of your wisdom to dispel the darkness of my mind and to heal my mental continuum. Please nourish me with your goodness, that I in turn may nourish all beings with an unceasing banquet of delight through your compassionate intention, your blessings and virtuous deeds, and my strong wish to rely upon you. May all suffering quickly cease, and all happiness and joy be fulfilled, and may holy Dharma flourish forevermore.
Brother, you can move that and put your feet on it. You can move that to right there. Yeah. And you can put your feet up on it. Yeah, great. Oh, what was I? Yeah. So it has to be something that dawns on you. It arises naturally, but the way that it arises is the same way that we, quote, create things with our mind, the brightness of our mind. And so it really comes through hearing and hearing and hearing and hearing. And as we hear, our mind shifts from the way it perceives and knows things that we have already heard and heard and heard and heard. If we, from the time we were a child, if our minds had been exposed to, say, these concepts, and not the ones we have, we would have this mind and not the one we have. And so we were talking about the Chinese and how they think that Westerners can't get the Dharma, because they have whatever a 6,000-year history of these kinds of concepts and principles, so much so that it's in the DNA, and that it's all around them in society. The notion of all of of one for all, as opposed to our individual weighted ways of thinking about life and our whole, like the rugged individual in here. I mean, it comes from all the voices throughout the culture, throughout the centuries. And so, we were talking yesterday, what's her name? Starts with an A. Harmony. Harmony and I, how difficult it is to translate Buddha Master's text into English, because we have words that are formed of characters like letters to create our words, but their words are formed of pictures. And a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so it's very difficult to accurately translate all that the pictures are implying in a word. And so they think then automatically, naturally, you don't get the depth of it because you don't have the whole picture. And to a great extent, that is true if we are trying to understand it from to filter it through our intellect. Then that could be very true. Actually, that is true. Or we try to piece it together through words of another culture. So we'll say love. We have the word love, Love, and everybody has a definition for what love is. But if you were reading, say, the Bible, and it's translated love, it means specific things and different things in different places. So they have eros, love. They have, what is it? Philios? Filio? That's friendship kind of love, maybe like loving kindness. You have agape, and that's like the God kind of love. Love is long suffering, it's kind, it's not proud, it doesn't puff itself up, it thinks no evil. It's all of that, sort of like unconditional, right? And so, but we just have love, and we have to figure out what that means. And that's why it can be difficult for us, and why if we lean too much to the intellect, we will hit a glass ceiling and not be able to penetrate to the reality of it. Our mind will stop us every single time. But if we can just hold it very lightly, that form is none other than emptiness. Why? Because form is an impermanent, it's a conditional manifestation that arises due to causes and passes away. That's what form is. And so if we have to have a new definition for even the word form, right? What is form? Okay, but what is form? Keep thinking. I'm liking that. I'm liking that. I want us to just keep delving. Based on the conversation that I'm having right now, what is form?
Everything is impermanent.
Okay, what is form?
A manifestation.
It's an impermanent arising of the aggregates.
That's a pretty good one. Impermanent arising. Arising, that's what? What is arising? Starts with a B.
Earth.
Birth. Now, when we think of birth, do we think of the arising of the aggregates? When we think of birth, do we? What do we think of?
Babies.
Mm-hmm. I hear you.
That's just Robbie, what I mean.
Oh, okay. All right, so when we think of birth and we think of death, we think of a human being that, coming into this world, and we think of death as them leaving this world, dying. That's what birth and death is. And if we try to understand any other concepts of birth and death, it bumps up against our understanding of a human being coming into this world and dying, right? Well, that being could be thinking of it as dying to wherever there was life before. Coming into this world could be death, and leaving it could be birth. You see, so that's why we can't fasten too tightly around words and definitions, because then we concretize them and we lock ourselves into some concrete idea of something. And this is what this is all about, breaking down all of these false notions that bind us, that lock us into views and understandings and cause us our suffering. You see, if I wasn't clinging to anything, any particular view in any kind of way, then I wouldn't have an attachment to it as good or bad. It is a happening. And I can learn resourceful ways to be with that happening, and it doesn't have to cause me suffering at all. And I don't have to cause anybody else suffering because of it at all, But we do because of our clinging to the language prajna instead of using it as a bridge to cross over, to leave home and go to a new land, to leave. This yielding, this letting go occurs on these very deep levels. And that's the actual practice of it. That's how one gets into the esoteric practice, is having to dismiss, suspend, allow to just be there without giving us a frame of reference by which to evaluate new things that we're hearing and learning, but using those new things that we're hearing and learning as the basis by which we evaluate what we already know. Just that one reversal of what comes first, or what is primary, will make all the difference between living like an ordinary, untaught, run-of-the-mill human being and one who steps over into the lineage of the Buddhists, where the perception, the depth of all things phenomenal and not phenomenal can be known. You're not going to be able to get it with your ordinary thinking mind. You're just not. And this letting go that we talk about, it's that kind of letting go. It's letting go of the intellect is wonderful and it can take us very, very far. But there comes a place that it cannot penetrate. And some people don't want to go any further than where their intellect can take them. That's okay. There's plenty of places and plenty of studies and plenty of activities and plenty of practices that people can do if they want to stay in that sphere, in that dimension of reality. But for those who want to go further, who have either the Buddha didn't actually know. He said when his masters told him, this is as far as you can go in understanding life and spiritual things. This is as high. There's nothing after this. And he said, oh, I feel there must be more, that there is something more. And he set out to make himself available to be accosted by what is more. And that's really what we have to do. If we don't, then give up this exercise and don't put yourself through a lot of problems, just go as high as your intellect can go. I mean, that's very high. I'm not, denigrating it, but I'm just saying that to push that envelope, to penetrate to the deepest and to penetrate the deepest mysteries of life, the deepest mysteries of the universe. I mean, they can be known because they exist. And so we always have to ask the question, what came before that? That's a good way to tire out the mind that's trying to understand this. Whatever you can think of in terms phenomenally, what came before that? So I could say what came before me, and I might say my parents came before me, my mother. What came before her, I don't know, her mother, and before that, her mother, and before, who was the first mother?
Well, Eve, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so where did Eve come from?
No, a rib.
A rib. And where did the rib come from?
Oh, don't even go there.
Where did the rib come from? Out of Adam, right? If you're talking about Christianity, out of Adam, right? Now, the Buddha would say that's a little incongruent with, with cause and effect. And this is where Buddhism is a little different. Buddhism says that all conditions are due to causes. There is this cause and effect. Every cause produces a condition. That condition then becomes a cause for a new condition, and that condition becomes cause for a new condition. So where did the original cause come from?
To look at the 12 links of dependent origination, it's ignorance, right?
Mm-mm.
Something.
Beginningless time. And so we say, well, beginningless time, that doesn't make sense. There had to be a beginning. Well, beginningless time makes about as much sense as in the beginning. Because where did the beginning come from? And so he says, in these ways, one can track things back, or one can just start with a new supposition. Like instead of in the beginning, they can just start with from beginningless time. And now you don't have to think anymore about what came in the beginning. You just start with beginningless time. And that's a way that one reconditions the mind. To me, beginningless time, when I was introduced to it in Buddhism, it made no sense at all. There has to be a beginning. And now having a beginning makes no sense to me at all. Because how did the beginning begin? And just that shift makes other things possible, other trains of thought, other ways of looking at things. If I start with beginningless time as opposed to in the beginning. So that's how just a slight shift in how we approach new data, or the basis upon which we examine new data coming in. That's how it can shift, whether there's somewhere else to go with this or whether it tops out at materiality. Right now, materiality is king. It's our whole view of life is based on concrete material things. Yeah. But if you can allow your view to be shifted or expanded, then other things become possible because of the approach. For instance, if we think that this mind, body, this consciousness, this being that you call Pannavati had her first start, in her mother's womb as the cause of the mother and the father coming together, and that's the beginning, then everything that happens to me in this life, I'm going to examine it through the lens of what? Of this life. I started this life, and when I die, that's the end of this life. And now I'm trying to hope that there's something else, but there wasn't anything before. It's just something after, right? So we have that kind of mind. So when something's happening, why is this happening to me? This is not fair. I don't deserve it. We go on and on, but we start with what? Where did we start? With this life, this notion of this life, this is me. And my life started at conception. Okay. But if I had the notion, and so all my view is based then on that concept, whether I identified it or not, that's the storyline. But if I had the Buddhist concept of rebirth-linking consciousness, and Einstein's idea that, energy cannot be created or destroyed. Like if we want to say, we go with science, okay? We say we go with science. Okay, let's go with science. Energy can be neither created nor destroyed. It just changes forms. Then that puts me into a mindset that I might be able to embrace the notion that before this birth, there was something that caused the appearance here. So, okay, something that caused the appearance here. We call it rebirth-linking consciousness. And I'm thinking about the people that I see born and I see died. This is the beginning of life and this is the end of life. And that's it. I'm even thinking, that's it. I don't know how I came, but I'm here. And when I die, that's it. It's nothing else. It's just this life. Then one could be confused about what to do with the life. What is the purpose of the life? How do you seize the essence of it? So we could think it's for getting whatever voices have told us bring us happiness. You know, like more money, bigger cars, bigger houses, partying, the nightlife, the whatever. And we spend all of these years doing those things that somebody said will make us, this is how you show happy, you know. And at some point, one realizes, especially if they got it in abundance, if you haven't had something, you can't miss what you haven't had. But if you've had it, or you've seen others and they seem like they're enjoying it so much, and you develop a craving, I want that too. And then you get it, and you find, oh, that didn't really make me as happy as I thought. Maybe if I had more of it, you know. That's the problem. I don't have quite enough. But if I had more of it, I'd be happy. I'd really be happy. Even if I kill my body getting it, I will be happy. And so we get more and we get better and we, you know, and then we start thinking, yeah, but, you know, having all of this and I couldn't get the girl I wanted. You know, all these other girls, all these other women, they like just coming to me, but the one I want, I can't have her, you know, and then they're suffering again because they crave and want something that they don't have. And then time goes on and the body that was so nice and so fit and so beautiful and so trim, you know, it begins to decay because there is birth and aging and sickness and death. That's the cycle of everything, sentient and insentient. And when that starts to happen, you start wondering, like, what really was the meaning of life? I need some peace. I need some solace. And then they start looking maybe into some kind of other teaching, something a little bit different than what's so readily available in the world. And then they start thinking. And thinking at this stage is good because the thinking is only designed to take you to the point that you recognize dependent origination, beginning link, which is ignorance. That I have not understood. Try to tell me when I'm 35, when I'm 50, when I'm 65 that I have not understood. It's very difficult to tell me that because, you know, I have my pride, my conceit. Even if I don't understand, I'm not going to let you know I don't understand. Even if I don't understand, I'm sure I understand more than you. That's how our mind goes. And we find it very difficult to take a different path, to consider something different. We find it difficult to take instruction because we have fastened to our concepts, and the awakened ones call them ignorance. Now, if this mind, this consciousness just had its start at conception, all I have to look back on is what I've learned in this life and what I have taken to be true in this life. But if there was a cause that produced that being known as Pannavati, there was something that produced that, then the cause of me didn't start at conception. It just made an appearance in this phenomenal world at conception. But it had a cause that was before this phenomenal world. So we call that the Gandhava, the rebirth-linking consciousness. That if I had two candles here and they were lit, let's say one candle is burned down, it's about to go out. You could say that's the consciousness. And stored within that consciousness is the energy of all the activities that were instigated in that life. That's that candle and that wick burning down. It's about to go out, and now you light a new candle. That one's out. It's here. You can't say that this is not the previous candle because it was lit from the previous candle. You can't say that it is the previous candle because that candle is gone. But that there was something that transferred in the form of the life of the new candle. If one cannot get this, cannot see this analogy, then one has nowhere to go in understanding karma. You can't. And one should kind of stay with that until that makes some sense for them. Because you'll only think in terms of this life otherwise. But if you thought of yourself there having been something since beginningless time, all the way up to now, then the first thing is that you'd have confidence that there's a lot more that you can get and you can understand because you might have had 1 billion lives or 1,000 lives. You've lived 500 times. This is a beginning way now. It's not the end, but this is like a bridge shifting from the ordinary thinking into there must have been something before this life that had a part in producing this life. So we don't say the egg and the sperm came together and they produced me. We say the egg, the sperm, and the Gandhava. The Gandhava being the life force that transferred over. And so with it comes certain things. So you could say, I'm not whatever person or mind stream or whatever sentient being I was before. I'm not that because I'm this. But you could also say I'm not that because that was the basis or provides a basis for a continuum that is this. So that means that when I die, Pannavati, that's it for Pannavati. However, there will be that spark, that flame that lights like the candle or the passing of the baton, and there will arise a being suitable to continue to live out all in ripening karma because the fruit of an action is inherent in the action when it's being undertaken. That means that you don't do something and later on there's a repercussion, good or not good. It means that while you're actually doing it, the repercussion is embedded in it. And it manifests outwardly, it comes to the surface at some time in the future. It could be the next second, like if you step off a curve, in front of a speeding car, then the karma's going to be instant. you know, or it could be something that's delayed. Like you robbed the bank, but nobody found out it was you for 10 years. Or maybe they didn't find out at all. So you think, oh, I got away with that. But remember, the fruit is resident in the action as it is occurring. So it's already in process. It's just a matter of when it's going to manifest. Today, tomorrow, next year, in the next life. So you see, it's hard to take up these concepts if we don't also retire some other ones. We'll go around in circles confused because one or the other has to be retired. These are the choices that we make. And the choices have to be made consciously. Consciously coming to some conclusion that the way I have held something, I can see that there is another way to hold that. There's another way to view it. And you undertake an experiment to see how that works out for you. Yeah. This is living the Dharma. It's that not hearers. Hearers don't get anywhere. They can just add more, thoughts for conversation, but they don't get anywhere. They run in place and talk about what they know. But this path that we're being offered through the practice of the Bodhisattva Dharma is designed to take us someplace. And most of us who are attracted to this path are attracted because there's been some character introduced to us who carries an ideal that we consider worthy to be desired, worthy to be undertaken. And so we have our notions and ideas of what we might call holy people, people who have great hearts, who are our saints, who are those that we admire. We talk about, I mention it often, but it's so true. We talk about the martyr, the one who gave up. It's like, I'm not giving up mine, no. We talk about the one who, and how we admire and revere them, but we don't really want to be one. We just want to admire and talk about those that are, and those who have given their lives for us. But there comes a time when that gratitude becomes so strong that one sees how worthless their life is if they've only lived it for themselves. And then one develops a greater aspiration, something awakens. It's almost like your heart leaps. Because you know that there is another reason, another purpose that I have not known for being here. I might not know it now, but I know that it is something other than eat, drink, and be merry, because tomorrow we die. Or 10 years from now we die. Or 30 years from now we die. Or 50 years from now we die. Bottom line is, we die. And so one starts to contemplate, what is the real meaning and the real purpose of life? And if it had no purpose other than to be born for me in 1950 and to die whenever I die, it's meaningless. But when I start to inquire And meditate has the concept of to mumble, to remember. I'm remembering. I'm waking up to what came before that. And if I only know a little bit of that, only a little bit of that, what came before comes to one's remembrance. The one has a little longer history with themselves. So they can see back a little bit further. Sometimes it's just going back and recognizing something in your childhood that you have forgotten. I remember when I was a child, this thought came to me, or this being came to me, or, we start to remember. So that ignorance is steeped in forgetfulness, in sleep. So most of us just sleep our lives away and ask each other, are you having fun yet? And if the answer is no, well, let's try this. And so life takes on a different dimension when one starts to wake from their sleep and slumber, because they're saying, is this all there is? Or they're taking an undertaking and suddenly their heart is expanding, and they're wanting to be part of a solution to things, and not just part of a solution. I mean, that makes John a dull boy. If all he needs is sees everything broken and wants to go around fixing everything, But in the beginning, we kind of are like that, because we have this newfound sense of purpose, and that there's something greater in life than just me satisfying my, we don't like the word lusts, but we could call it that, just satisfying our lusts, our wanters, and our gimmies. And so then we start shifting that energy to fixing things. So, I meet a man, he's a nice man, he's useful man, he just needs a little bit of fixing. So I'm going to work on fixing him. Or we will see a woman, and she's so delicate and she's so beautiful, and I'm thinking, I'll just take this upon myself to be the protector of that one. And whatever, it's how relationships come about. They don't just happen. They come about through some undiscovered ideas about what's in front of me. So when I was young, I was very fragile, very fragile. And fragility has it's kind of like a delicate flower, and you have to handle it really delicately, so it bruises very easily, and you have to protect it. So strong men were always attracted to me because of their strength, and their strength needed something to grab hold to show itself forth. So strong men gravitate towards delicate women. Yeah. And but as I kept growing through my spiritual practice, and particularly in the Dharma, I'm like, I can keep myself. And I no longer needed a strong man. But strong man, that's all he knew how to do, was to protect. And I said, I was like that, but I'm not now. There's that I don't know what to do with myself. We got to find something because I grew. So in this life, we are to continue growing and developing until we fully remember in the beginning. That's all. I'm just trying to wake up. And if I understood it like that, I wouldn't make such a effort to turn this into something, because everything I'm trying to turn it into, it's already complete. It's already complete. It's just a matter of me realizing it. But to realize it, I have to let go of limiting constructs. And that's the question. Am I willing to let go of what has me locked into a worldview where it is? If that's okay with me, then I stay with that until it's not this life, next life, next life, whatever. Now, what's scary about this is that it seems to leave no room for the self. Like, what about me? I mean, like, I'm really sitting right here, you know? You see all this foolish talk about non-self and all of that. I don't get it. I don't get it. But there are times when you know for yourself that you are thinking about yourself and what you need, because you can feel the substance of it. You can feel the weight of it. It doesn't have to be a heavy weight. I'm not saying it's a bad weight. I'm just saying it has weight. You can feel the weight of thinking about the self. We call it like it's a kind of stress that comes with it when I'm thinking about myself. They have like a bad stress they call stress, and I think the good stress is called eustress or something like that. But there is awareness of a sense of a self that is a stressor. Mm-hmm. It is.
So our intelligence is working against us instead of experiencing and just accepting. We're kind of on attachment to the intelligence and to the figuring it out.
Yes. You couldn't hear? You could say it again.
There's a record mark. You just have to express it long until it turns on.
When we start thinking,
Mm-hmm.
okay, when we're looking at ourselves and we realize the intelligence that we have amassed over our life up till now, we're so hung up on the I or the self and figuring it out, getting the scientific view, we miss the fact that if we just let that go and experience what is there for us to experience, to raise ourselves to a different level, then it's just easy. Because as long as we're attached to so many things in our life, we can't get there.
And attached to not even the things in our life, we're attached to our idea or our thoughts about the things. That's what we're really attached to.
Yeah.
You know, our ideas and our thoughts about the things. And so this is really a mind game if you could understand it. That's why when we talk about meditation, sitting and relaxing and letting go and just letting all thoughts fall from your mind. And people say, oh, now I feel so much calmer because a few minutes ago I was just about to knock somebody's block off, and then I remember my teacher said, just breathe. Just come back to oneself. And they find, oh man, that was pretty good. Oh, so here's the answer. The answer is meditation. So we'll do more meditation, so, and then that becomes something that we do. And then we like, I'm attached to that meditation. This is my style of it too. Like, this is how you do it. First, you cross your legs, you sit on a cushion. Don't matter if you never have before. Just get down there and don't move. And then we'll go into step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And we've just created a new construct in our mind. And now we become attached to this. And if you don't do it like this, you don't know meditation. And if you don't, have the experience that I have, then you're not a deep practitioner. And if you don't, and we just make another thing out here, right? But this is talking about something else. If we can really just get it. So I know where we are. We're on page 203 in our conversation. I want you to look at the story and the analogies. It says, sorry is a bird. I'm in the middle of the page. I'm not going to read exactly. I'm going to paraphrase now. Says the Sariputta was, due to his wisdom, which was prajna wisdom, not intellectual wisdom, prajna wisdom, he was called the one who was foremost in wisdom among all of the 16 principal disciples of the Buddha. Sari means a sarika bird. And it says that the eyes of the sarika bird are extremely sharp, sharper than the eyes of an eagle. It says that as auspicious as and powerful as an eagle's eyes are, the shari bird is even more so. So his name is Shariputra. Putra has 2 meanings. One meaning son of, the other meaning not, or no, not as good as it should be, or is not. Here it means not abiding. It connotes not abiding, not being attached, not emptiness, and not existence, not coming and not going. Now, if I worked with this week, I would be sitting there with not empty and not existence, not coming and not going. And I would just sit with, what is the experience of that? And the first day, I might not get anything. The second day, I might not get anything. The third day, I might not get anything. The fourth day, I might get into something like imagining, like a seesaw. It's not up or down. It's just sort of like in the middle. Like they have this hovercraft, it's just sort of in the middle. Mind is shifting from either or. It's shifting from this or that. It's shifting from concrete extremes. And it's just beginning to hover in some kind of middle ground. And we know what middle ground is. Middle ground is not when you compromise with a person, because compromise involves some strain and having to cross a line with a sense of giving up to keep the peace. So it's not that kind of compromise, but it's more of an ambivalence. You know, ambivalence doesn't have the stress that compromise has. So it's like taking these words, ordinary language, prajna, and contemplating them. That's part of the process. We have to contemplate what we hear. Contemplating doesn't mean thinking about it through the lens of how we understand something. It means thinking about it in spite of how we have understood something before. How else can I think about this? How else can I hold this? How can this be this and this? How can this be, so integrated that it doesn't need to be separated? No useful purpose in separating. How can we just hold something? How can we hold something in such an accepting way that we don't tear it to either extreme, that it has to be this or this, that it can be this and this. It can be both. Like a win-win. It can be both. Beneficial from either view. And in this way, we start lopping off the extremes in our life. We start lopping off the extreme ways of thinking in our life. We lose a certain kind of discrimination and become non-discriminating. That doesn't mean not seeing anything, but that seeing everything equally. So if we're doing our activist work, how can we use that in our activist work? We become as dogmatic as whoever or whatever we are fighting against. And it says then the dichotomy will always exist, and one will have to eradicate the other, stamp out the other view, kill off the other. It says, but there is another way that things can become harmonized, but it takes someone who has a big enough vision to encapsulate the whole thing. That's the only way. Like, I'm never gonna see that side of it. I'm never gonna be with that. Just know, then there's not gonna be any way. We're always gonna be dealing with extremes. I'm part of a circle of interspiritual leaders. We're supposed to be coming together to talk about, how we can just be concerned about human beings. Some may understand and reach a higher state of consciousness through the particular ways that we teach and the methods that we use to help a person remember their or see through to their original nature. And we may have a way, and it might be called Buddhism, and somebody else has a way, and it's called Christianity. Somebody has a way, and it's called Judaism. Somebody else has a way, and it's called something, But how can we take those aspects that are of equal quality and just broadly share them? That's what we're supposed to talk about. But the minute somebody starts talking about something in their, in their particular method or methodology or way of seeing and understanding things, their dogma, the minute they say something that goes against what somebody else's is, they're up in arms. I'm like, and these are the leaders. Y'all, we just need to go home, give this foundation their money back because we're not ready. Because we're still so attached, because we have a singular interest or singular view, And this is what this is designed. This whole contemplation on emptiness is designed to do, is to uproot our discriminating singular views. It doesn't mean that we have to adopt the view of another, but one has to know to be able to encompass and cover the view of another, where that fits in the whole scheme of things, because it obviously does fit somewhere, because some people are walking in it. So it does fit somewhere. Where does it fit along the spectrum? And if somebody comes up only 60%, how can I bring in the other 40 to present them 100% blameless? How? That's where the skillful means comes in. So this is not just a study. It is a mixing in of an ingredient that completely transforms the whole mixture, the whole soup. It changes everything, and it becomes indivisible from the other ingredients that are in the soup. It's like the spices getting into the sauce, and you can't separate the spice from the sauce, from the liquid. It's just so a total part of it. This is the practice. And so every day when we go home, we have to take a bit of the Dharma and figure out how to make it the spice in our soup that utterly transforms what's happening and how I hold things and see things and do things, what we say, what we think. It has to shift. It like adding that ingredient into a soup, and we have to let it cook. You can't like just put in the spices at the end. I don't cook, but I have learned that because I've tried to fix it up, to make it taste better. It doesn't taste good. I throw some more stuff in, stir it up, but it's not the same. It has to be in there. It has to cook under that low heat until it's fully integrated. Now, this is the true Dharma life. And I think that some of you are beginning to get a little taste of it. You may not know, what is that spice in there? I don't know, but I taste it's something in there. And it even has an aroma. It has a smell. I don't know exactly what it is yet, but I know I like it. And I give you a little bit. Here's something you can just put in yours. And it's kind of like that. So life shifts and takes on a different dimension. It takes on a different quality. And you come to find out that you're not really like a person who has qualities. You are the qualities itself presenting through sentience. I don't know how to say it to you any better way than that. That you have these values, these quantitative and qualitative values presenting as sentient beings. And we're not the only sentients. This is classification of human beings. There are other sentient phenomena, we know some of them. Some of them have gross material bodies like ours, like animals and insects and birds and things like that. Some of them have a fine material body, like ghosts and heavenly beings, devas. We're not the highest on the food chain of pecking order. Well, we're not the greatest in intelligence. That's obvious to us. There's got to be something in all of this creation in the billions of worlds and galaxies. And this is the highest. I mean, that absolutely does not make sense. So anybody who thinks that there's nothing higher than a human being, and anyone who thinks that we're in all of these billions and billions of galaxies alone, and we talk about a divine creator who couldn't come up with anything better than us. So there must be some reason for the station that we are in. And the Dharma teaches. Now, I have a great respect for some other spiritual disciplines. I learned a lot. I not only learned a lot, I transformed a lot. I learned more about the heart of a bodhisattva through Christianity than I'm learning through Buddhism. One reason is because Buddhism is so heavily steeped in wisdom teachings, and wisdom can be cold if you ain't got no heart. You know? And so when I didn't know so much, you know, but I was developing that heart could just like break open for you. That's all I sing about. Broken and poured out for you. Oh, that sounds so noble. And that's so good. And on a certain level, it is. But what's more noble is to have wisdom combined with that compassion. And that's the wisdom to know when to let you do it yourself, the wisdom to know when to help, the wisdom to know how much to help, the wisdom to know what can be said, when it can be said, how it can be said, who it can be said to, what is the right timing, what's the right shading, what is the right, all of these kinds of things, you see. So if we want to be useful and valuable, we have to have the wisdom. We also have to have the compassion. So I was in a great tradition that had a lot of compassion, but I didn't have the wisdom that goes with it. And I didn't have the skills. I was aware that the skills are available, but I didn't know how to get them. No, I didn't have them. I thought they were the gift of God. He says, like, I'll bless you with that gift, and you, but not you. I'll give you some. I'll give you a little bit. And it was like, how does this work? This is who gets what and why? I didn't know. So I asked the question, who gets what and why? And the answer came, well, if you want to know, go over there and study that. It's known over there. So I went over there. I'm still here, coming to know what and why and how. So I'm trying to get it intellectually, but intellectually is not all of it. It is through the doing with that cultivated heart that the scales fall from one's eyes and one enters into these higher states of consciousness whereby, you know, because they have the virtue to abide on that frequency, they can activate and use what's available on that frequency. So let's say that I have limited human being capacity of seeing, you know, so that's a certain spectrum. I don't know what the numbers are, but I can only see this much within this range as a human being, you know, but my cat sees this much. So when cat sees things that I don't see, you know, my dog, I don't have a dog, but when I had a dog, my dog could hear somebody coming from the sidewalk up to the house. I don't hear them till they knock on the door. But my dog, he's already at the door because he heard them or he smelled them or something, because his central capacity was greater by his classification of being. And so it is for us as human beings. Now, I'm just giving you some general conversation today, because as we're going into this, form does not differ from emptiness. Emptiness does not differ from form. Form is empty, empty of any inherent existence, and emptiness is form. Emptiness takes on the qualities and characteristics of things. But if you cut me open, you won't find Pannavati inside. That's what emptiness form is. Emptiness is form. I, this physical body, am not from the beginning to now. I'm not from the base all the way up. I am just the last layer of something. And if you cut me open, you won't find Pannavati in there. You'll find something in there, but it's not Pannavati. You find blood and guts and bone. So if you cut into any of those things, you won't find blood and bone. You'll find, I don't know, what's a breakdown from that? Cells, okay. You'll find cells. You cut cells open, you don't find cells in cells. You find mitochondria. If you can penetrate that, you won't find that. You find something else. You know, I learned a new word, quarks. They didn't have quarks in my day when I was in school, so I never even learned about quarks. You know, but I know these little tiny infinitesimal things, and they're smaller than cells. And you know, so no matter how much you penetrate, whatever you consider something basic, even foundational, once you penetrate it, you don't find that inside of it. It breaks down and down and down and down until there is nothing. So everything comes from nothing. And that's something, it's a concept. It's just a concept until one has an actual realization of it. Now, how does this help me, like, pay my bills? How does this help me stay in good relationship, you know, with my partner? How does this help me, you know, cure defaults in communication with my children? How does this help me make friends and influence people? How does this help me? That's the question that comes up. And I'm like, what benefit is it? Well, the benefits come from one recognizing first, before we get to emptiness, first we study good and evil, good and bad, meaning useful and not useful, beneficial and not beneficial, helpful and not helpful, you know. We study like that. But after a while, we get away from things being good and bad, and we don't see them as either or. We can see them as both, because a lot of times we get good things and turns out that was not a good thing for us. Or a lot of times something bad happens, and if that hadn't happened, I never would have met you. You know, a lot of what we consider bad, if we look at it in isolation, which we always do, that's why we can only see the good or the bad. But when we start holding it in a certain way, you know, then it takes on a different quality. You can't say that it's good or bad. You can't say that it's neither good nor bad. It is, and it is manifesting due to causes, right? So causes produce conditions, and those conditions produce new causes. Yeah. And that is this life. And so I hope I've taken you through a progression. I'm trying to get us to a new set point on how we view the Dharma. That's what I'm trying to do today. Because from this point on, it's going to be difficult to try to intellectualize and understand things. But with a certain receptiveness, one can penetrate the deep layers of differentiation until we get to the place of non-differentiation. And that doesn't mean that this is the same as this. What it means is that this is equal to this. It is, and there's just an equality of everything. And that's what brings really the kind of peace into our life that we're looking for and the stability to our life. Now, when that comes, there is a detachment. There's a detachment from those views, ergo, a detachment from a sense of an individual self. That's the only way that that view comes about. Seeing it within the whole scope of this kind of spiritual science. And one starts thinking that I am separate from the other. But that we are, we're inexplicably connected, that we're equal, that we're one, not two. And the more that I connect with that notion of the oneness rather than the two-ness, the more I can connect with the mentality of the other, the mind stream of the other. Do you think that reading minds is so difficult? It's only difficult if I am insular with my own mental construct, and you're insular with yours. Then yeah, he said you have to give up resistance. But resistance implies that there is something to fight against. But when I'm not resisting myself. So if I have the mind that's turned towards we are equal. So I think that's the second or the third step in is it
Self and others are equal.
mm-hmm.
First one, of course.
Who in here does not have what is cultivation book? Okay, I'll make sure you get books today. It's a small 39-page book. Can I just have it for a second? And I'm sorry I backed up today, but I feel like we really need to get it where the rubber meets the road. Just near the back, right?
Page 18. What are you looking for? It's 21.
Yeah, okay. So on page 21. Okay, so we have this practice that we do, and it's called Great Compassion for My Mother Bodhicitta practice. And the first aspect is understanding who my mother is. And we got up to self and others are equal today. It says, I deeply understand that all living beings in the 6 realms of reincarnation within the 3 spheres of the universe have been since beginningless time my fathers and mothers in the revolving cycle of reincarnation or rebirth-linking consciousness. There's a little bit that comes before this that I didn't talk about today. But if we hold today that since beginningless time, there has been this existence, and we can now add that all living beings, that we are connected in some way. So that means maybe in the last life you were, with this love at first sight. That's not just love at first sight, but it's a karmic connection, a karmic attraction, And so we're just thinking then that all living beings have at some time been connected with me in some way. As a mother, a father, a sister, a brother. He didn't go into a pet. He didn't go into anything non-human right here. He just started with human. We could say that. And so he says that we should bear in mind kindness. We should have kindness for them because they have been kind to me in all of these lives before this one. And then it says, so then I should repay that kindness by being kind to every being. Can you see that this is a practice? This is a way of the one is shifting one's mind from our ordinary ways of thinking that we're each individual and somebody owes me something, and it completely shifts the way you think. It's a practice. You cannot read it. You have to do it every day. You have to condition your mind so that your mind inclines or looks at it that way. And then it talks about, so then I should, enlighten myself, be the best person I could be. All this in order to save them, because at some point in time, they've all been my family and they have given for me. They've given things for me. They've cared for me. And so at all times, through the action of my body, speech, and mind, I'm loving and kind to all beings. So then somebody comes and hits your car and you jump out the car and say, "What are you, an idiot? Didn't you see me sitting here?" It just says, at all times through the action of my loving karmas, my 3 karmas, I'm loving and kind towards all living beings. Why? Because I take them as my parents, have been my parents throughout all, since beginningless time. And then, so then when he hits me, I'll go to his car and say, "Sir, are you all right?" That's the first thing I want to know. Are you all right? Then I might want to know some other things, like you got insurance or whatever. Like you got to keep it real. But what I'm saying is it shifts how we approach. It shifts our approach. But first the mind has to be shifted. And then we'll, and these are all steps: understanding who my mother is, bearing in mind kindness, repaying that kindness, loving kindness. You have to love being kind. That's what loving kindness is. It's not like I'm practicing loving kindness. May I, no. And then you say all of these things. Got that done for today. But loving kindness is you have to love being kind. The only way you learn how to love being kind is practicing it when you're not feeling like being kind. That's how you cultivate and develop loving kindness. Then you start to see the benefit of it. You start to see the value of it. You start to see that it can get the result that you're after. And even when it doesn't, it ain't your fault. You did try your best. You offered it up. And so then you could accept when the person can, because they're not as much of a practitioner as you. Just kidding. So you're able to handle your circumstance by how you have flavored and seasoned your mind, what spices you have put into the sauce. And so when one gets like this, compassion is when they're repetitious with it, day and night. I constantly beseech all of the higher beings who think like this, the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas and the Dhammapalas and all these other classifications of beings, the ones who are higher than us, in terms of virtue and capacity. Who are more practiced, more developed, more stable in holding their mind in a certain place, because they're actually practicing it and not just reading about it or even talking about it, but who are actually doing it. And so day and night, I constantly beseech all of those beings who have attained to empower us all, that we can extricate ourselves from all forms of suffering, and that we can actually do this practice and liberate ourselves. Okay. And then after that has been done, then we start talking about renouncing greed. I hold no attachment in my mind to anything that I do to benefit beings, anything that I have to benefit beings. Then one starts to be concerned whether others are sufficient, and we start helping them. And then we start eliminating attachment. In my practice, as I cultivate all forms of goodness, and benefit my parents. And who are my parents? All living beings. I will not become attached to any Dharma. I should eliminate all attachment, even to myself. Realizing then a state of emptiness. I am aware and I experience the wonderful happiness that comes from samadhi. When I'm practicing the Dhamma, I am not attached to the Dhamma. I do not intentionally get rid of deluded thoughts. I do not intentionally seek the truth. But even as I practice, that's how we do get rid of deluded thoughts. And that's how we do come to know the truth. And we'll come to know the truth of what it means not coming and not going. Blissful, clear, without thought, calm and tranquil. Everything is emptiness. Now, bit by bit, you'll begin to get a glimpse of this if one fills their mind with this. Whatever I think and ponder on becomes the inclination of my mind. Thinking and pondering upon this, not upon what I'm trying to uproot, but what I'm trying to bring more and more into focus that actually exists, that actually is already here. Already here. It's just a matter of where you're looking. So you should probably go back to the Dharma of cultivation, which is where we started. It will help you to understand and get a glimpse of what emptiness is experiential beyond words. And the Buddha himself said, there are no words to truly express or describe this, but it definitely can be experienced. It can be known, but it has to be known directly, not through the limitation of words and not through the limitation of the intellect. I think I'm gonna stop here. And the reason why I wanted to kind of go this way is because I had a long talk with Zazie last night. And I shared with her that our academy was going to be something a little bit different than an academic academy, but something more on the line of like mystery school, experiential, and that would be the only way that I would know to do it, that it has real value other than being just one more study place, and I think that this is how Buddha Master is guiding us. So there are some things that we have to learn, but I'm going to tell you, we're not going to learn them here in the Dharma Hall. We're going to learn this as we're walking out this Dharma? When the thought comes to my mind, how do I categorize that thought? And what do I do with that thought in light of what the Dharma says? You know, and as we get better and better at this, then the darkness of ignorance will begin to fade. And all the usages and all the accomplishments that are available for one who has eyes to see will manifest. And this is the marvelous existence of the Dharmic life. And I know that we are close. But we have to take it more into direct practice. We're going to have to get a lot of things out of our mind that it's just our way of thinking. You know, just the way we hold things, just the way we look at it. Not that they're bad in and of themselves. It's just that they don't serve us for this goal. They don't serve us for this goal of being completely unfettered and free. Okay, so I guess I would like to ask you to go ahead and take the books and read the same section that you read the last couple of days. I want you to focus on the character Fu, meaning not. Here it means not abiding. It connotes not abiding, not being attached, not emptiness and not existence, not coming and not going. And it goes on to say, although the name contains Fu, there actually was no one then called Fu who came into being. It is a matter of the conditioned arising and false combinations of earth, air, fire, and water. That's what this is made of, earth, air, fire, and water. Thus, there is not or there is no in the name. Sariputta means that in fact there was no creation of that being. His name is a false designation. The name is a figure of speech. Actually, the name even does not really exist. There is actually no one called Fu who came into being. That is merely a false designation. It's a matter of the conditioned arising and the false combination of the four great elements, that is earth, air, fire, and water. The four elements gathered together only through the union of cause and effect, or cause and conditions. And that's why it is called the conditioned arising and false combination of the four great elements. That's you. That's me. And then he goes on to discuss in more detail the conditioned arising of the four great elements. And go on to page 205. Thus, everything in the world, every little bit is a false combination produced by cause and effect, causal conditions. Why are they called false combinations? Because all things that abide in impermanence, all things abide in impermanence and undergo the process of arising, existing, decaying, and vanishing. That are called false combinations. And then go down to the middle of the page. His first teacher, that's Shariputra's first teacher, was a master of non-Buddhist teachings. His name was Sanjaya Viratiputra. What is meant by non-Buddhist teachings? Teachings that are not the absolute truth of the Buddha Dharma, cannot end the cycle of birth and death, and lead to existence in the three spheres. those are not Buddhist teachings. They are not the paths of seeing with prajna. And so he's not saying that there's something right or wrong with them. He's just saying how far, the limitation of how far they can take you in. And it says that because Sariputra's wisdom was so high, as soon as he listened to the Dharma, as soon as he listened to the Buddha impart the prajna, he immediately realized the states of a Savaka and Prachika Buddha. And so those are the beginning states of awakening. And it says, and he happened to become a monk. That means everybody becomes one. Doesn't mean that. It just he happened to become one. And he practiced according to those teachings. He practiced according to those teachings. He practiced according to the teachings. So he didn't just read about them and continue to practice whatever he was practicing that was taking him to a particular destination. When he wanted to go to that destination, he practiced according to those teachings and went to that to get to that destination. And we should earnestly forge ahead and master that Dharma without the slightest deviation. And he says, are there any such disciples here among you? Any such disciples among you here? So now we're coming to where the rubber meets the road. If I want a little bit of this and I want a little bit of that, what I'm saying, past the hot sauce, past the, but, when you go to you go into a Michelin restaurant, you don't get a salt and pepper shaker. You better not put salt on their food. They know exactly how to season it. And for you to shake anything on it is tantamount to messing it up for them, So how wonderful that we've been invited to the table prepared by a Michelin chef who knows how to mix the ingredients in such a way, because every person's palate is a little different. He knows how to bring those spices together in such a way that they awaken on the tongue of each individual. That's magical. Yet each will leave the table satisfied because they had a taste of what they needed specifically. They had a taste of what they desired for their own freedom specifically. They had a taste of something that gives a certain kind of not even a hope, but sparks an aspiration in them. That there is something here that gives life, not just information. There's something that gives life. And that it's available to me. I know it. Because I've felt it within myself. I've seen it within myself. It's something like right behind. It's right there. It's not totally in my view, but I can sense its presence. It's available, and it's available now, and it's available for me. But the requirement is that I have to cultivate it in order to harvest the fruit. Stay with that section. We should not leave that section. Something's happening right now around breaking through that barrier around emptiness and how we see and hold ourselves. So I want to just stay with those 4 pages.
Keep in mind, people watching online will see it.
Too bad. You need to make a set up for a retreat and come. Yeah. If you're online, sorry. You can.
Where you read it all.
Yes, you can listen to what day was that?
So you just read it here too, but
Sunday.
Okay, so I sort of paraphrased today, which is really not good because I think actually there's some penetrating power in reading the direct words. But go read last Sunday's, listen to Sunday's Dharma talk. Take whatever notes you need to take, and you should try to get here for a retreat so you can spend some concentrated time. You know, go slow, get slow. Yeah. Thank you all so much for coming today. And by the way, she said she understood. She said, that's what I'm trying to do for myself. That's why I'm taking off for the month of May. I'm just going off for the month of May, and I'm going to try to like immerse myself in just in practice. So she said, I think that's a good thing. And she said some other things too. I'll tell you about those later. May you be well and happy and at ease. May no harm come to you, no danger. May you always be able to overcome the vicissitudes of life.